The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the tragic disappearance of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro, whose parents reported him abducted, but now mom and dad are locked up, and we're learning a lot more about the investigation. Here's the story. The disappearance of 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro in Riverside County, California, has shaken the community to its core. At first, his parents, Rebecca and Jake, pleaded for help, claiming their infant son had vanished without a trace, taken by a man who said the word "hola" and then knocked out Emmanuel's mother. But as investigators dug deeper, troubling contradictions surfaced, unraveling a chilling reality. Authorities believe Emmanuel's parents, the very people meant to nurture and protect him, are responsible for his disappearance. The search for Emmanuel has become a desperate mission, fueled by both hope and grief. A child so young, so vulnerable, ripped from safety under the most unthinkable circumstances. And prosecutors say it was his own mother and father who are responsible for this horrific act. And the search for Emmanuel has not ended. They still have not recovered this little boy, despite the fact that mom and dad have been charged. And there was an interesting development when we spotted the defendant, one of the defendants, Jake Haro, with detectives and a search crew on the side of the 60 freeway. And at that point, there was a lot of hope that Emmanuel would be found. But there's also a lot of mystery surrounding this particular search. A lot of mystery. Let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who joins us live from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. He's been on the ground there following the story. Matt, great to see you. Did they ever explain why they searched that specific area? What was the basis of that search?
Some level of cooperation. That was the quote from the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. They're leading the charge here. In less than 24 hours after Jake and Rebecca Haro were officially charged and appeared in court for the very first time on those murder charges and also falsifying a police report, there was a huge news conference where we were learning new details in this investigation, including more about that search off the 60 freeway in Moreno Valley in Southern California, where Jake Haro was seen in a jail jumpsuit 2 days after his initial arrest with cadaver dogs and the search teams. Now, that was the very question I asked to authorities when we first got our opportunity. What information led them there? Take a listen.
We have a pretty strong indication of where the remains of baby Emmanuel are. That investigation is ongoing at this time. Yes, go ahead.
Matt Johnson, Court TV. What was the information that led to the initial search off the 60 in Moreno Valley?
Sheriff, you want to take that?
I'm not going to go into grave detail about that, but there is some level of cooperation with the suspects involved in this, and we're trying to locate that, and our job is to follow every lead. But for the rest of the room here, we have to understand what you're dealing with is an experienced child abuser that is aware of a previous case, that is aware of evidentiary things that we are certainly concerned with. So we're going to take every step to not only work with any suspect or witness involved in this, because at the end of the day, we have to bring a case to Mike and they have to charge it, and we have to make sure that every single thing, no matter what is told to us or what we discover in terms of evidence, is the right thing, and that we follow it up extensively.
Dealing with an experienced child abuser. That's what we picked up on in that answer right there. And then several reporters during that news conference followed up with my question, again, trying to ask for the specific evidence that led them to that location. And they said, well, it's just part of our investigation right now. We cannot disclose it.
Have they been back to that same area to search? Because I know that was about a half-day search or so. They went out in the afternoon. Have they gone back?
Still unclear at this point in time, Vinny, because I know that we went there several times following the initial search 2 days after these parents were arrested, when he was seen there on the 24th of August in that brush area off the 60 freeway. We didn't see any investigators at that point in time. And then today we followed up along with other outlets asking where they are searching currently, and they said that they don't want to disclose it, frankly, right now, that they have an idea where this baby could be, and that could be in the evidence that they've already collected, possibly the cooperation, quote unquote, by this defendant. But they don't want to disclose it, and they don't want the public in Southern California searching on their own either.
All right, Matt's going to stick around. Interesting developments here, right? So the language isn't super precise. They're telling us some things, but, you know, some level of cooperation, some idea. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation. Do investigators know where baby Emmanuel was left? Do they know? Are they guessing? Are they surmising? Where are we in this? It's not as clear as it usually is. Here to help us answer that question, former homicide detective, host of The Interview Room with Chris McDonough. Chris McDonough is with us, and private investigator with more than 20 years experience, Jason Jensen. Okay, Chris, former homicide detective, read between the lines here. Do you think they actually know?
You know, Vinny, I think this is one of these situations where, you know, the father's on probation, so they probably pitted him just for that. They executed the search warrants, got out to the house, grabbed the cars, the devices. Now they're working off a digital footprint. And they probably sent that over the Special Scientific Investigations Division at the San Bernardino Sheriff's Office there. And they're working off of that digital footprint. And when they went out there, obviously, you know, they got some type of digital footprint that put them in that area. And then they went back to him and said, okay, this is your opportunity. We need your help. We need you to cooperate. Let's go. And that's probably why they pulled him out there.
So, Jason, do you think that they know? And if they're could they be searching in a completely different area? Do you think this is the area where Emmanuel was left and perhaps will be recovered?
Clearly, from your exchange with Matt, it sounds like they may have information because there is some level of cooperation, but they're not going to reveal where this search area is because they don't want the general public out there messing with the search zones. And so I think that there's an understanding that they have with this level of cooperation. They know where to look, and we're just not seeing where there's large crowds out there searching yet.
Let's take a listen to that part, because everyone keeps referencing this, and I think it's an important part of this story and the way things have transpired. Here is investigators and the DA from that press conference.
There are professionals that are looking for the remains of this child. If the public has any information, then we ask for their help. So we don't know exactly where the remains are. We have some ideas in terms of where we're going to look and where we're going to continue to investigate. When you have members of the public that are out there doing their own searches, all it does is potentially prejudice and damage the case. So please, let the sheriff's departments do their job. They know how to do this, right? We're helping with them, anything they need from us, but they are the ones driving this investigation, and they will track down every lead. I have all the confidence in both of these great sheriffs and their great departments.
Yeah, Chris, this is interesting to me because you're talking about a tiny little baby that has not been found. Each day, evidence, I hate to refer to a baby as evidence, right? But they're telling us that this baby is dead. So now evidence to get justice for the baby disappears each day. I know what happened down in Orlando, Florida, when they didn't find Kaylee Marie Anthony. When they didn't find her, the weather came in, the bugs came in, the critters came in, and in the end, there wasn't enough evidence to convince a jury. Why are they saying no to anyone helping?
You know, Vinny, they're already at a 9-day deficit, right? According to the information that we have. So, of course, if that child was deceased almost the first day, and then we don't know what happened to his body. Remember, they hit that house pretty strong, and they even pull up the floorboards. So that tells us they had a lot of blood activity inside of that house. And now when you move that body to, you know, an outdoor environment such as this, you know, you're going to have to go up against the elements. You're going to have to go up against, you know, animal activity, et cetera. And that canyon where, you know, the baby may be off of the 60 there, there's a lot of coyote activity, you know, rats, that kind of stuff. And so they are up against the clock, but I think they're confident enough. My belief is with that digital footprint that he was out there at some point.
Yeah, and Jason, I get back to that statement, some level of cooperation. Like, either you tell us where the baby is or you don't. I don't know what are they giving, like dropping little clues? That doesn't make sense to me in terms of why someone, it's impossible to get inside the head of someone who would abuse a baby. That's Jake Haro, has been convicted of it already. But providing some level of information, right? Some level of cooperation. Like, you either know where you buried the baby or left the baby, or you don't, you're going to tell them or you're not. That's the part that's got me confused, because it seems that there's more than one area that may be in play here.
Right. And situations like this, I typically want to take off my missing persons investigator hat and put on my defense investigator hat. And that's where I would want to encourage, as part of the team, to say, hey, this requires full cooperation. Otherwise, you know, going after a malice murder versus manslaughter or something in the middle is off the table, because they're only going to assume malice if you don't get the full recovery of a body.
That's true, right? If it was an accident, you would want the body, because then you could prove scientifically that it was some form of an accident. All right, guess you're going to stick around. Coming up next, why would Jake Haro allegedly abuse another baby?
We come to you guys asking you to help us find our son. He was abducted last night from Big 5. Somebody struck my wife while she was trying to change his diaper.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Ready to just ask you guys if you can help us, you know?
Please.
This is what he looks like. He's just a baby. Just give our son back, please.
Our baby. Did you see what the flyer said? Missing kid? Missing kid. Who calls their baby a kid? My kid. Here's my missing kid. My missing 7-month-old kid. Nah, doesn't work. From the beginning, folks, you know, the father, the mother, but the father, really something about him. And then information started to come out that this guy has a criminal history involving another one of his children in a prior relationship. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson back with us from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office. Okay, what did we learn about that prior case involving that other child of his, the other abuse case?
Yeah, definitely. He was in the system before, so we were hearing from the Riverside County District Attorney's Office and the DA. He was very impassioned when he was talking about this situation, saying that the system not only failed baby Emmanuel, 7 months old, but also one of his siblings, because there is a court case where Jake Haro was involved in with injuring an infant, where he was in the system, went before a judge, should have been sentenced to prison. That's what the DA associated with that case was pushing for. But then the visiting judge in the case sentenced him to probation. Take a listen.
It was an outrageous error in judgment by this judge. And I don't have any problem saying that. I'm not attacking the judge personally. That decision was absolutely outrageous. Mr. Haro should have been in prison at the time that this crime happened. And if that judge had done his job as he should have done, Emmanuel would be alive today. And that's a shame, and it's an outrage. And I hate to say that, but when our criminal justice system breaks down, I'm going to just call it like it is and tell you it broke down. I want to read to you the injuries. The child's name is Carolina. She is still alive today, but she is permanently bedridden. She has permanent damage, cerebral palsy, that is a result of long-term child abuse.
That baby girl, again, suffered head injuries, numerous, several fractures. Again, you heard right there, never going to be the same. Life changed forever. And then baby Emmanuel, presumed dead, and at the hands of this same father, according to authorities.
Unbelievable, Matt. Unbelievable. You know, he got a deal, like probation for that. So what we're saying is that this defendant was able to walk out of that courtroom, yet his victim, a 10-week-old baby, will never walk. Unreal. All
Never.
Right. Matt's
and
gonna,
it's just, it's unreal and sad. You're right.
Matt's going to stick around. That brings me to the next question, because think about this. He gets a break. The judge literally tells him in court, I'm giving you a break. Don't get into trouble. Why would Jake Haro allegedly abuse another baby? You're convicted of abusing a baby, that the injury is so severe that baby has CP, will never walk again. And now he's allegedly abused another baby who likely is not breathing, is likely dead, according to investigators. All right, here to help with our investigation, psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, and author and certified mental health counselor, Sharonda Brown. Dr. Janie Lacey, I'll begin with you. You're in court, and the judge says, I'm giving you a break. You know that your own daughter now will never walk. Will never walk because of what you did. How could someone then walk out of that courtroom and then abuse another baby? We're not talking about child abuse here. This is baby abuse. Whole different scenario. How can that happen, Dr. Jenny Lacey?
You said it, Vinny, a whole different scenario. And, you know, we have to address exactly what you just mentioned, him walking out of that courtroom. First, I mean, it's just the fact is, first, there was a system failure. We know that when individuals that have serious child abuse convictions, like in this case, when they receive lenient sentences or inadequate monitoring, the risk to other children remain elevated. We know this, right? The research backs this up. It consistently shows that without intense intervention, the rates of repeated behavior remains dangerously high. But when we look at this situation, we know that cases similar to this, when individuals have previous convictions for child abuse and they now face new allegations involving, in this case, another infant, we know that there's an escalation pattern that occurs. And with this system failure, there was an opportunity to have intervention. There was an opportunity to save Emmanuel's life, and it was complete a system failure. But there's escalation patterns that we know when there's experiences of potentially his own childhood trauma, his own abuse, and not having any type of intervention. It's common among offenders who have their own trauma history that increases their risk of criminal conduct, as we see in this case, Vinny.
Sharonda Brown, it's shocking, it's outrageous, but how could someone do that to a baby, get a break, not serve time behind bars, and then turn around and allegedly do it again?
I think we're trying to rationalize an abuser, and we both know that abusers are addicted to control, and their most common victims are those who are defenseless, who, you know, cannot fend for themselves, who are most vulnerable, and that involves children and babies. When I hear about babies being abused, it lets me know that the issue is not necessarily the baby, but maybe the role that this person or that the abuser has to play. So I'm thinking, okay, he's a father, he's gotten away with this multiple times, which means he's probably has some type of issue with fatherhood or has has some type of trauma with his own father. And so what I noticed with abusers is that they tend to go after the victims who represent who they were when they started to become abused. So it lets me know that there's an issue here with fatherhood. There's an issue with babies. There's an issue with the responsibility or the role. And what helps increase this is how often they get away with it. Abusers are fueled by the number of times they get away with it, not necessarily by the victim being hurt or being upset. It's really about how often they're able to get away with it and not have consequences.
You know, I was doing the math, and I believe if he was put in prison, the child would not even been conceived to begin with. He would have been locked up. I don't think this baby would have been born, Emmanuel. But let me ask you about this, Janie Lacey. A lot of people are wondering, why would Rebecca have a child with a man who put his child in bedridden for the rest of her life by abusing her? Why would someone even decide to have a child with someone like that?
Well, Vinnie, we see this all the time in these toxic dynamic relationships. So my assumption would be that Rebecca has her own set of challenges, and perhaps, you know, her addiction in particular to him and wanting to please him, that they will sacrifice their own children, they will abandon their own self to constantly get the validation or, you know, chase this empty love from their partner, to the detriment of what we're seeing here. So when we look at women in particular that have their own trauma history, that have abandonment issues, you know, their own core wounds, they will pair with people potentially who will it's what we call trauma repetition, that they will feel the same thing over and over and over again. They're trying to perform and audition and try to get that validation and that attention, to the point where children are abused, neglected themselves as well. You know, because I would imagine that there's probably some level of abuse in their relationship, would be my assumption when we consider Rebecca going along with this story for her own child, Vinnie.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people are wondering about that black eye, where it came from. Dr. Janie Lacey, Sharonda Brown, we're out of time for tonight, but we'll do this again. All right, up next, how do they prove this murder case against mom and dad?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the disappearance of 7-month-old baby Emmanuel Haro. His parents said he was taken by a stranger, but now his mom and dad are charged with murder, and prosecutors are speaking for the first time. Here's the story. Rebecca and Jake Haro have several children. The youngest is just 7 months old. His name is Emmanuel, and he's missing. Emmanuel's mom, Rebecca, says she knows what happened. She was in the parking lot of a Big 5 sporting goods store and was trying to change his diaper. That's when she says she was attacked by a man who said, "Hola," and then knocked her out cold. When Rebecca came to, Emmanuel was nowhere to be found. Investigators questioned her and confronted her about the inconsistencies in her story. Meanwhile, Emmanuel's father, Jake, was convicted of child cruelty back in 2018 when he abused his 10-week-old daughter, who now suffers from CP. Rebecca and Jake have been arrested and taken into custody, charged with the murder of this little angel. And the community is left wondering, why and how would anyone do such a horrible thing to such an innocent baby boy? So this is a murder trial. This is a murder case, but baby Emmanuel has not been found. And that is a real hurdle that investigators need to overcome here. You've got to, you know, you don't have the victim. And so many times in so many cases, the evidence that you get from the victim in a murder case is so important, so incredibly important to tell the story of what happened and what happened to this little child. So let's try to figure out what is going on here. Let's bring back in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson live. Where are you in San Bernardino or Riverside tonight?
I'm glad that you asked that, because we are here in Riverside County in front of the DA's office, and here is why. They're the lead charging on the case, but this is a case that really spans Southern California, the search for missing baby Emmanuel. You have a united force with San Bernardino County, the country's largest county, that agency working hand in hand with Riverside County on the case and searching for clues. Together, they have searched the couple's property in Cabazon. They searched, which is located in San Bernardino County, Riverside County. Then they also searched the area where the reported abduction, which turned out to be false, that was in the other county. But they're working together, and they've also conducted interviews, and they have also collected a lot of digital and electronic evidence. Take a listen.
After finding out those inconsistencies in the statement on the initial report, that's where hundreds of hours of investigations have come in by our Specialized Investigations Division to try to get to the bottom of what's really going on here. And when I say hundreds of hours, I'm talking about forensics, forensic data on vehicles, phones, and potential crime scenes, judicial authorized search warrants that were served. Forensically, there are a number of things that we were able to prove up that we're not going to be able to share today exactly how we did that, but there is a tremendous amount of evidence that suggests that the initial story posed was not the correct story.
I can't comment on the evidence in this case, but what I can tell you is that modern homicide investigations are very tech-heavy. And we have two very modern, cutting-edge sheriff's departments in Riverside County and in San Bernardino County. And so, yes, what you mentioned was the high-tech crimes unit of the San Bernardino DA's office, their Bureau of Investigation. They assisted, and beyond that, I can't say what they found. That can't get into the evidence. But yeah, this case is going to be built on, like almost all homicide cases now, electronic, digital evidence. It all comes into play. What's next is, first and foremost, the investigation will continue, and it's led by the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, and then also Riverside County Sheriff's Department assisting, and then the prosecution will begin. We've filed the case. The case will begin to work its way through the criminal justice system here in Riverside County.
Sharing resources, overlapping counties. Everybody is all hands on deck for this case, Vinnie. This is truly a case that has rocked Southern California.
Now, this is just a 7-month-old baby, and it's a murder case, and you're charging 2 adults. Like, in my head, it's like it doesn't take 2 adults to murder a little 7-month-old. Like, would they gang up on him? I don't understand that. So what are they saying? Why are both mom and dad charged with murder here?
Right, so both mom and dad charged with murder and also falsifying a police report, because remember, they reported this as an alleged abduction at first, which turned out to be false, leading us to today. They are both facing the same charges, and that is because authorities with the Riverside County District Attorney's Office says that they're both culpable. They are both involved in the abuse of this child, ongoing abuse, and that's what led to the death of this baby. They didn't get into specifics of injuries that they believe or the evidence that they collected that led to that thinking, but they're both responsible.
Ongoing abuse. Okay. All right. Matt Johnson working overtime for us tonight. Appreciate it. Great work as always on the ground. Okay. All right. So, like, you don't have baby Emmanuel. You're charging both. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. How do they prove this murder case? How do you prove this murder case? I think this is a challenge. Obviously, we don't know everything they know, but still. Here to help answer that question, former homicide detective, host of the Interview Room with Chris McDonough. Chris McDonough is with us, and crime scene reconstructionist. You saw him in the Alec Murdaugh trial, basically brought it home for the prosecution. Dr. Kenneth Kinsey is with us as well. Great to have you both here. All right, Ken, what do you think? He said tech heavy. What are we talking about here, tech heavy? Can Ken hear me? Dr. Kinsey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now, Vinny. I'm sorry.
So he said tech heavy. He says we're very modern. We've got all this stuff. It's a tech heavy, modern prosecution. What do you think we're looking at here in trying to build this case and prove murder against mom and dad?
Digital evidence, cell phones, messaging on cell phones, location on cell phones, surveillance cameras to and from the home, anywhere in proximity to that location that the child was allegedly abducted from. It could be a number of things, Vinny.
Let me ask you, Chris. They're alleging ongoing abuse here. They don't have him.
Yeah, Vinny.
I don't know if he's been to a doctor. What do you think the evidence could be that they have that there was ongoing abuse?
That's a great question, because I think at this point, outside of the forensics evidence that they're going to have, this is turning into a psychological game, right? Where, you have to always remember that the best evidence ever in any homicide case is right out of the mouth of the suspect. So I think what they're doing is they're developing a shared trust with him, and they're kind of luring him in, and that they're putting pressure on him as the evidence continues to develop. And I think that's what the DA was saying there. Look, this is still an ongoing situation, and he's cooperating with us. So they're keeping him off balance.
Let me ask you, Dr. Kinsey, can you put together a story, a narrative that could be told in a courtroom for the ongoing abuse and murder of a baby if you never recover the baby, if they never find Emmanuel? And if so, how detailed do you think that story could be here?
Absolutely, Vinny. And I got to agree with Chris. When there's information that we don't know, some information that law enforcement has received, the courts have received up to this point, and as needed, they're keeping it in tight. But it all boils down to what the suspects tell them, being able to corroborate it, verify it, refute it, and they start building their case there. It's going to be difficult without finding the remains of the child, but I do believe it's a hurdle that can be crossed, and I believe they can accomplish that with this case.
Chris McDonough, every time you hear about a case like this involving a child and a body is not recovered, or when the body's recovered, the autopsy doesn't reveal cause and manner. It takes me back to Orlando. It takes me back to that jury from Pinellas County that wanted to know exactly how Kaylee Marie Anthony was killed, and the prosecutor couldn't do it, and that woman was set free. So how do we prove that this wasn't an accident?
Vinny, I think one of the things that's going to play here is the fact that they're in front of the jury, i.e. the public, and saying, look, this child was kidnapped. They're going to unwind that story, and they're also
Zanny the nanny. She did the same thing. She said, Zanny the nanny took my baby.
I'm with you, but I think on this one here, they're going to get into his click history, and if he has anything in there about injured children and how to handle them, he's toast.
Boom.
Especially with his past.
Boom. Because he did do that in the prior case. When he broke the ribs of his daughter, who can no longer and will never walk, he did look that up. That's a great point. Yeah. That's why we bring him on the show. Chris McDonough, Dr. Kenneth Kinsey, great to see you both. Awesome insight. Still to come, what role has social media played in this case?
Today's episode being brought to you by the number 10 and by the letter E for Emmanuel, still missing here in Cali Mesa, quite possibly Yucaipa.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
We have started our own search party here in Cali Mesa, California. These are our constituents. We started with one, and we got about 10, 15 people here, all looking for the common goal.
And that's Ahmed Belozo, who's been leading the charge out there in California from the beginning. His social media site, On the Tira, all over this story and reporting fact after fact, development after development. And there was a mention about us, the media, at the press conference. Let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson, who's at the Riverside County DA's office. What did officials say about us, the media?
Well, the media, traditional media, has played a big role in this investigation, the tip lines, very helpful. But they also said this. They said that social media and some individuals have been hurtful. Let's watch.
I want to thank all of you in the media for covering this, specifically the parents' initial statements to the public while we were trying to find Emmanuel. They became critical as we continued through this investigation.
I just want to thank all of you for, especially the normal mainstream media, for your attention to this and for your cooperation in this.
You did through this report, and I go over to this asked about the jail confession. Your authorities used fake inmates to get information, and the father confessed that.
Well, see, that's not true. So I don't know where you, well, no. See, this is what happens when you've got all these folks out there online and these keyboard warriors. You get a lot of misinformation, and what you just said is not true. It's misinformation. So that's what I'll tell you did not happen.
Someone posts something on social media, and then you all believe that it's true. I actually complimented the mainstream media because you've actually been reaching out to us for comment and actually been printing what we've told you. It hasn't been the sensationalism and the wants for clicks for social media. And that is doing nothing but harming this investigation.
False information hurting the investigation. Those were words that we heard quite a bit during that news conference less than 24 hours after the first appearance of Jake and Rebecca Haro in court. And right there, you heard the DA also double down. He says that there was no jailhouse confession. Vinnie?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting the way all this has developed. Matt, thanks again. I think I said goodbye to you. I'll say goodbye to you again. Still working hard. See, came back for another segment. Unbelievable. Okay, so there's always going to be friction. There has been through the years, sometimes between law enforcement and the media. And whether it's media, social media, to me, we're all in this together, and that brings us to the next question in my investigation. What role has social media played in this case? Here to help answer that question, private investigator Lauren Vellucci, also very prolific on social media, and the man who has been leading the coverage of all of this, the founder of On the Tira News, Ahmed Bellozo, is with us as well. Great to have you both here. Ahmed, let me begin with you. What do you see as the role of social media in this story, which began as the search for a missing, abducted baby?
I believe personally that social media plays a very, very important role in getting information out in real time to our constituents, as I like to call them, or my constituents. I can't speak for other social media creators because I tend not to watch other content creators, because in some of these cases, that's exactly what it is content. And so I can definitely understand the frustrations of the authorities, but to put us all under the same umbrella is just so disrespectful, the same way it would be disrespectful for me to put him under the same umbrella in all the atrocities that have occurred in his department. And so there's bad apples in every profession. In this case, I feel like I have done an exemplary job, and not only because I toot my own horn, but because my constituents have told me so. And not only that, I actually got a message today by one of my sources who is in the investigation, and he said, I can't speak for the sheriff, but I tell you personally that your information has been invaluable to us. And so as hot as I was earlier, and no disrespect to nobody, but I feel that at least in my personal page, I know that I am not out there misleading the public. I am not a copy and paste sort of reporter. If I get a lead, I go down there and I investigate it, because it is not my job to try to show you, or it is my job to give you the facts and let you make your own decision just as they do. But the thing is that when they want our help, they sure ask for it. But when we go out on our own, they complain, and then they blame us, the social media, when they should have singled people out or reworded it very, very different. And so just as disappointed as they are, I'm disappointed myself.
Yeah, and I don't see a difference here, Lauren. Like, he could say normal media, like I'm normal versus no, the media is the media. It has always been evolving through the years, and it has evolved to the point where citizen journalists can go out there on their own and dig up stories. And Lauren, you've seen it in the world of true crime that cases have been solved by people who've been running out and getting things done, or things have been uncovered, things get stirred up, the conversation. It also puts pressure on investigators to solve cases.
And I think you touched on it, I think that's what they don't like. But it sure does put pressure. And yeah, all the time we're hearing of cases that if an independent journalist or a, YouTube creator hadn't got involved and put so much information out there, things wouldn't have come to light. So I have news for Sheriff Chad Bianco. I hope that he tries to create a working hand in hand with these creators, with these journalists, because they're not going away. This is the wave of the future. And if you're not gonna, have a working relationship, you're doing yourself no favors. You're burning bridges where they would be helpful bridges to find information on your cases. And I found it very tasteless, because there is no normal journalist, like you said, and even big news stations can get it wrong. So
right. And sometimes they can be accused of getting something wrong when it's actually right. Another job of the media is to keep those in power honest. And you got to keep the powerful accountable for what they do. Ahmed, I'll give you the final words here. We have like 15 seconds just to wrap things up.
I believe that either you want us or you don't. And if you don't, then don't use my content, straight out.
There you go.
Get a subpoena.
Get a subpoena, exactly.
And you know what? They called me asking me for video still, and I said, it's not my problem anymore.
Look at that. Ahmed Bellozo, Hanatira, thank you so much. Lauren Velluccia, always great to see you as well. Social media and true crime go hand in hand. The power of the public is immense. Social media can stir things up, keep stories alive, and create a public awareness that is so much more powerful than just the old-fashioned press release. The question is, when will law enforcement learn how to harness it and use it as a tool rather than just dismiss it? I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.